I watched a video recently by the UnhingedMagi, two guys who are really big into collecting and investing in old Magic the Gathering product. They were responding to a little article that was written about Flesh and Blood, claiming that it was going to be moving from a collectible game to a true player's game, and they are calling complete BS on this statement and LSS. You see, according to them, a player's game is very specifically a game where you buy a box and it has all the cards in the set. There's no randomized boosters, there's no collectability, you just get the cards and you play it. That is the only definition of a player's game. Now, I know you might be scratching your head and thinking, well, aren't there other interpretations of a player's game? No, you stupid Flesh and Blood player. There's only one definition for it. That's it. You just don't have the galaxy brain to understand the argument these gentlemen are presenting. LSS is claiming, through an article they didn't write, that the game is going to be a player's game, which means it's going to be like Munchkin and is going to drop its collectability, so there's going to be no more boosters. But that's ridiculous. LSS isn't going to be doing that, so they're lying to you and completely BSing you, just trying to appeal to whiny, annoying players who want cards to be dirt cheap. Now, I am just a dumb Flesh and Blood player, but when I read the term player's game, I actually thought of another trading card game. Now, you might have heard of it. It's been around for a little while, but it's probably pretty niche. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! See, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is widely known to be a player's game, and I know our 600 IQ friends are gonna disagree with me on this, but let me explain. There are far more people playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Than collecting and investing into it. Konami wants people buying their cards, buying the new sets, buying the new archetypes, purchasing all their new products. The focus is on the players. It's not a cheap game to play, but the focus is still there on how playable it is. They want people in seats at tournaments, at the LGS, going to nationals, going to YCSs. Even the collectible cards tend to be very rare printings of highly playable cards. But it's still a trading card game. I think LSS wants Flesh and Blood to be a player's game. I think they want people to be very invested in the meta. They want people to be buying the new sets because there's new cards that help their old decks or give you new ones to play. They want people going to events, going to their LGS. They want people to be sitting at the kitchen table and playing with their friends. They want people playing the game. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, most of the money goes towards the newest, most playable cards, and I think LSS wants this to be the same way. Yes, they do have old, rare, collectible stuff, but most people who are involved in Flesh and Blood are going to just be buying cards for their decks so they can go and play and compete. Now, hopefully Flesh and Blood doesn't go to the extremes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Does, where decks are well over $1,000, but I do think that LSS is looking to make this the best game for players out there. I think they want to improve on their play testing so they can make for much more balanced formats. I would like to point out, though, to the people who keep railing on LSS for having some broken cards in the early days, that Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Both had incredibly broken cards in the early days. This is nothing new. When new games come out and they're learning how to balance it and how to create their game, there's gonna be mistakes. And not to mention, the very article that the UnhingedMagi guys were responding to was about the new Classic Battles decks. That is a product that, while a lot of people think is overpriced, is clearly geared towards trying to get new people into the game. It's gonna be a fun, introductory product with special heroes and cards. It's got some cold foils, it's got some rainbow foil equipment, and it's just there to get people into the game. Ultimately, I think the chasm that we're seeing in Flesh and Blood between the collectors, investors, and the players is due to the fact that the collectors and investors saw the limited print runs of the first few sets, saw the fact that there was first edition and unlimited, and assumed that first edition was only for collectors and investors. This is the attitude that seems to be prevalent. Because of Unlimited's existence, they think that that is just for the peasant players and they aren't gonna want first edition. But in my opinion, I think it's become very apparent that LSS wants players to also have a chance to get first edition. They want players to also have a chance to get cold foils and some of this rare, valuable stuff, because the players are their primary focus. And it's not fair for the people who love to play the game to not even have access to the cool, rare, collectible stuff that they're probably gonna want. Because if you're like me, you love playing the game, but you also like collecting the cards. In my humble opinion, I think Flesh and Blood is a player's game. It's perceived as a collector's game, but it is ultimately a player's game, and that's the direction they want to continue to go in. And while there are a lot of people that right now aren't very happy about it, they're very negative about the game, they're very negative about the products, I think that Flesh and Blood is going to be fine, and I think it's going to be very successful going in this direction. At the end of the day, I'm just happy that I get to sit down and play the best trading card game in the world.